name is Lorin Hansen. I'm the founder and artistic director of Samba, and I am a lifelong Utahn. I was born at home, actually, and my mom still lives in the house that I was born in. It's over near Liberty Park, and I have a lot of family here, so I'm very rooted in Utah for maybe, actually, I think I figured out the other day, 5 generations of Utahns. So my ancestors are from here as well, from southern Utah, from Paraguna. And yeah, I'm a Utahn through and through. I also fell in love with Brazilian culture, and I've traveled to Brazil a lot, starting in 2005 and ending right before the pandemic hit in 2020. Samba is Brazil's national music and dance. It is a blending of African cultures with Portuguese cultures. So in the slave trade, and as Brazil was getting colonized by the Portuguese, it was a lot of sugarcane plantations, so they looked to Africa for a workforce and started to bring Africans forcibly into Brazil in a really big way. They were the last in the Americas to abolish slavery, and I always ask this in schools. Nobody ever is able to answer it, but how many Africans did we take to the United States forcibly, were brought here? About 450,000. As a comparison, it's about 4.5 million to Brazil. And it was a total of about 12 million people, and 10 million survived, and about half of those people ended up in Brazil. So Brazilian culture is really African culture and Portuguese culture combined. So that is what Samba is. It's got elements of both, sort of more conservative, Catholic-based Portuguese culture, meeting African culture that was displaced and mixed up, right? There wasn't much regard for different tribes. Everybody just kind of showed up in Brazil together, and this is where we kind of see a mixing of African traditions in order for them to survive in an oppressed environment or outlawed environment. When we say the word samba, we can mean samba dance, samba music, or like a samba party. And you find this in rumba, like in Cuban rumba, that word gets used in the same way. It's music, it's dance, it's a party. And to me, there's something about keeping that connection intact. So with Samba Fogo, we see a lot of modern dance that is done to recorded music, but in Samba Fogo, we always try to use live music because we believe in the energy connection, that loop that's getting created between the musicians and the dancers. I'm a samba dancer. I'm also a samba drummer. And I'm a sambista, which means I'm part of the samba culture. I have a lot of teachers because of this amazing thing called California Brazil Camp, which is a dance and drum intensive in the Redwood Forest in California. It's a really, really powerful and amazing experience, and we have a tradition of taking Utahns to that camp on scholarship. And if you play in our band a little bit and you contribute, then we'll help you get to this place, magical forest, to study this amazing samba art form. So this is where I learned, and it's also where I met hundreds of teachers over the years. And these are my guides and mentors in my work. One thing that we do that people really appreciate in that world is we consider samba to be a high art form worthy of fancy lights and a beautiful theater, and we rent out the Rose Wagner every year. And when people in the samba world see samba in that environment, they go, whoa, like these people really respect this art form and are kind of lifting it up. I think as a white woman involved in samba, which is an art form that comes from marginalized Black people in Brazil, I need to work really consciously. But I've never received anything but encouragement and support from the people who have taught me. And that's important to me. If they had ever asked me to stop, I would stop, you know? But they don't. They advise me and they help to guide me and to keep everything genuine. And, you know, I don't really love the word authentic, but you know, because what does that even mean for a white woman from Utah doing Samba? How do I be authentic? But one thing for me is I am authentically in love with this art form and I can't hide it, you know, and I don't try. So I continue with that guidance and with that love. When we dance Samba, Samba is a lot in the hips. It's fairly sensual, it's very freeing and an expression of celebration of self. It is also, to me, a very heavy dance. As someone who came from ballet and modern dance, where we lift ourselves up and we dance on our toes, and there's sort of a disconnection from the earth in our foot, right? If you watch a dancer's foot and the way we speak with the land underfoot, in Samba, we place the whole foot on the floor and we say we are speaking with the land and even speaking with our ancestors. We wear these costumes that sort of project upward. Sometimes the feather backpacks project upward. We wear these big Samba heels. 1, 2, 1, 2. And we bring it into the hips. We ideally want 3 hip switches. However, the secret is that that's all an illusion and that it's a heavy earth dance. And the heavier we can be as dancers, the better our Samba is. You know, it's we call it popcorn Samba, when you bounce your Samba around, or I call it Zumba Samba. But Samba can get really bouncy sometimes when it gets a little misinterpreted. In its origin, Samba dance, the very first style of Samba dance is called Samba de roda, which is Samba in the circle. And this was being danced and explored and developing under slavery, like in the days of slavery. And these were Africans who wanted to dance their dances, but maybe weren't exactly permitted to. So what would happen is they would make a circle out in the back, and shoulder to shoulder, if they had enough people, they'd make a full circle. And then one dancer goes into the center of the circle and makes their way around the circle dancing. However, it should look like they are just walking. And in that way, if they got too bouncy with their Samba, it would tip off the authorities and the whole party would get shut down. So it's actually within the history to make it a heavy dance, and we spend a lot of time practicing not letting the head bounce up and down, even though our hips are wiggling, our feet are moving like lightning, but we want, like, if you can balance something on your head and do your Samba at the same time, that's the ticket. So after realizing that I could not live without Samba, I started to bring home the rhythms and the dances and took really good notes and taught my husband and my community how to communicate in this way. And in 2009, I traveled to Salvador Bahia, and I was studying a dance technique that's called Silvestre technique. And it was developed by my teacher, Rosangela Silvestre, who studied with Martha Graham and grew up in African Brazilian culture. So it's a blending of these worlds. And her mother is a candomblé priestess, and she offered to give me a reading, which was a very casual thing. I went over to her house and I sat at a table, and I was instructed to ask 3 questions about my life. And through the tossing of cowrie shells, this is a common thing in the Orisha tradition, the use of cowrie shells to determine certain things. This priestess, this woman, this mother of my dance teacher told me that my guardians are Oshosi. My main guardian is Oshosi, king of the forest and protector of the forest. He's also a leader. He's associated with community. He goes hunting to bring home food to feed his community. When I got that reading, I was in Brazil getting food, music and dance food, to bring home to my community. So that very much made sense. And yeah, my other guardian that came up in that reading is the ocean, Yemanja. And I was like, are you sure? Because I'm not so comfortable in the ocean, but I'm really comfortable in the forest, you know? But she reminded me that the ocean washes culture from one continent over to the next, and that would be sort of my role in life as well. I grew up very connected with the land and the earth, and I went camping a lot with my family. I was raised with respect for the land. You know, I was taught to talk to plants and ask their permission before I take a piece of them. My parents studied with a lot of Native American elders and sort of brought that way of knowing into our life, and that's how I was raised, to regard the earth as a living, conscious being. And then have this tradition in my life of dancing for the elements and dancing for the forest, dancing for the wind, dancing for the ocean, and began to learn how to speak with and connect my body with these natural forces through dance. And I have an eternal longing to be closer to the earth. I live in a city. I have some access to nature, but I really feel like it's lacking in my life and a lot of our lives. We live in disconnection. And the Orisha tradition was my first way as like a young adult of finding that, like reconnecting my body with nature through dance. And it also taught me a lot about my personality, how to be strong and show my boundaries, how to admire myself, how to flow like water, you know, how to be a warrior and a badass, sorry. So it is a very rich tradition and is very rooted in nature. And I think I ran a Samba company for a long time, and it is a very satisfying, beautiful thing. But there's a lot going on with the earth right now, and like when I drive around my city, I see a lot of trees dying, a lot of rivers drying up, a lot of tragedy, a lot of stuff that hurts my heart. And I also felt that personal longing to be closer and to help. Like all of us kind of feel helpless, like how do we help? And I think a lot of us feel helpless or disconnected from the political process. So I started to question, like, how can I take this beautiful Samba community that I've spent years and years building, and we do feel powerful together when we drum and dance together. How do we actually harness that power and use it to help the earth that is suffering? I have this thing about the foot. You know, the feet, actually Samba, when we dance Samba, we call it Samba no pé, which means Samba in the foot. And when we dance with a flat foot, we say we're dancing for our ancestors and speaking with the land. And I believe that our personal relationship with the earth is sort of reflected in the way we dance, but especially the way the foot contacts the earth. Is it poking it? Is it kicking it? Or is it stepping gently? And in Samba, we take a lot of care to connect with the land under our feet. In European dance forms, we show power by traveling, running and leaping and bounding across the room. And I think there's a metaphor here about, you know, going to explore other lands, traveling and leaping across the world, sort of disregarding the land under our feet and all the magic it can hold, And we go traveling across the world, and this is sort of my story. I went to Brazil several times and kind of became obsessed with Brazil. And then I started to realize, you know, Utah is the most beautiful place on earth and has so much to connect with, and I missed it. I missed southern Utah, and I missed just feeling connected to the land, and I just thought, oh, I'm doing this wrong. Like, I'm living my life wrong, and I need to reconnect with the earth, but I need to do it not as a severing of this beautiful Samba community that I've built, but as a continuation of that. And so I started a new dance project called Return Dance Planting Project. We also call it restorative dance planting. And it was born out of a personal need and longing to connect with the land. I also do a lot of planting. I grow a big organic garden every year, and I basically found myself spending half my time planting and half my time dancing. And when we plant, you know, to me, there's a certain rhythm and repetition of movements. You find yourself doing the same thing over and over again, and there's a kind of a dance within that. And I started to say, well, we do live music and dance performances outside all the time. What if we study the steps of planting a tree and the movements that go into planting a tree, and we choreograph those movements on dancers and we set it to live music? It feels like it has a lot of potential, and for me it's been really healing. I mean, Samba was very healing for me and my community and transformative. And then I thought, I wonder if I can find that same kind of healing and transformation, but sort of direct it earthward. And for me, the continuation makes total sense because Samba feels like an earth dance, like it's connecting with the land. And we're just taking that and making it a little more literal. I also think, like, you know, in an abstract way, we artists, we try to combat big issues like this, and through our art and through abstraction and on the stage, we try to speak to this stuff and we try to heal the world and help. But what about like actually picking up a shovel and, you know, dancing with our feet on the earth and our hands in the soil?